as you before. But could you just talk a little bit about
Sure.
exactly
Oh,
what's
sure.
on it and where we'll access it?
Yeah. Well,
Hmm.
just briefly, hello everybody. We started the recording late, but we'll join you and try to catch you up. But Judy just asked about a previous meeting where we talked about TNG, the Next Generation website, and there is a monthly meeting recording that talks about that. But to do so here briefly, Susan and I actually are going to get together Tuesday and actually go through the purchase process. We've sort of been putting that off, but uh, TNG, the next generation, is an on the web. It's not a software like Family Tree Maker or Brothers Keeper and some of those that resides on a computer. It's out there on the web, so it's basically a website. Uh, to integrate it to our own Park Society web page, we're simply going to have a link there. It will integrate with a WordPress platform, but not with Wix, which is what we use. But you can just check it out. Just do a Google search for TNG or the next generation, and they have a very good web site that will show you examples of what the website can look like. They have quite a number of different templates that you can adjust and change colors and styles, uh, and uh, and it also will walk you through some of the features that it can afford. Not only just giving you the names and dates and all of that, but creating all sorts of reports which any member who can access that will be able to do. So you can go find your family lineage, a family group within that, and create all sorts of charts and reports.
Ken,
Yeah,
do you want me to go ahead and share my screen? Because I have a example of
sure.
TNG.
Yeah, yeah. I think you've done that before, but we've got lots of time, and since we started the recording late, maybe there'll actually be something on here worth watching. So yeah, so Susan, this is her Blair Society, which uses TNG, and so take it away, Susan.
So, again, I think that we envision the Park Society having a similar setup. Every individual who will be entered into this database will have their own individual page. One of the things that we wanted to sort of highlight in today's meeting is the notes section, but I'll just, as you can see here, we've collected the name, the birth date, gender, marriage. There's all sorts of these fields can be manipulated, and we of course will want to in our version of TNG will capture the DNA project numbers that are associated with certain families so that we'll be able to do some reporting on that. But the one thing that I wanted to point out, especially as we get into older generations where a lot of the written materials were not as available. So the Blair Society they used to use something called Brothers Keeper, which was a software product that was housed on individual computers, and this information was drawn from that. When we finally purchased TNG, we were able to export all of this information into TNG. So these records were part of two historians ago or two genealogists ago in the Blair Society. So I'm the third genealogist sort of putting information in here. You will see here that we're speaking about um, uh, this individual. Again, we have notes in here that, by the way, these are from an earlier genealogist who didn't note, their information. I will just simply go to where I have added information. So if we go to the son James, you'll see here, and we plan on doing this as well, so that in those really old generations where we're trying to capture as much information as we can, but we haven't proven lineage or we haven't proven connection, we're going to use our notes sections to highlight all this. We also have, so you'll see here, notes are free form. They can go as long as you want them to. Um, but again, and this will be available to all of our members so that they can, if let's say you're doing research on a person and you find that you have information that helps us beyond what we have in our notes, you'll be able to submit those and we will be able to then update this information for the benefit of everyone. I'm going to go a little further. So you see, this is David, this is James. We're going to go to his son, Robert. You will notice here, and these are mine. Again, and I started to get involved, I started putting where the information came from so that there will be source citation, and we can do a better job of that. We'll put the link in and things of that nature. But as you can see here, there's a lot of information. Here's information that came in from member number 184. So member 184 is actually deceased. But this was many, many years ago that they put this information in, was searching for a connection to the line of Anna Blair, who married, you know what I mean? Again, it's intended to be, this was something that was submitted to the genealogist to then put it into those earlier records. We simply imported it in. I'm just trying to see. This is a fairly fleshed out family for the Blair Society. I mean, obviously, it goes back a fairly long. Robert Blair and Isabel Rankin are probably two of the most well known, or the most well known couple in the Blair Society. They just had a lot of offspring, and their history is very well documented. Um, I'm going to go and quickly look
Susan,
at. Yeah,
yes. While you're doing that, Susan, let me just jump in and point out, and this is unlike sort of a family tree on Family Search and things like that, where people can come in and put incorrect information or conflicting or wrong information. This will be, controlled. There will probably only be a small handful of people who can enter information, but any member is certainly free to, contact and ask for corrections and information or add information. You just won't be able to do it directly, so that we have that control that you don't get on those uh, common trees on Family Search, uh, which I think is a good thing. But but if you see something that you absolutely know is wrong, or you have better information, then there's a way to contact us and get that corrected, which doesn't always happen on that tree on Family Search, unfortunately. So back to you, Susan.
sure. And I mean, these are easier things. You can look at it in various different modes. This is the descendants, ancestors, this individual where we were, timeline. Oh, that broke on me. Um, and then I just want to see if the photos are available. So we started putting photographs in and they're attached to various, let me just see if I can, I don't know if you all, so you see where we have them linked to, this was passport application. What we found and what we're working on right now is these come up as a thumbnail. So if I click on it, and I try to expand on it, it gets a little fuzzy. So we're trying to figure out how to um, how to have a picture that remains clear when it gets blown up. So, but obviously, let me just go back to where we were. There is a source citation so that people can go to that location anyway and pull that information, but we were trying to make it so that they didn't have to. Here was a death announcement that we put in. So again, you can see it. It does provide you that. It tells you all the information. These are attached to the various individuals that are in our database. So, as more and more of this information gets put in, um, and perhaps we'll just leave them as thumbnails so that people, they have the citation, they can
Mm.
go and pull it themselves, but there is the proof that it was there. So,
Oh, you mentioned passport applications.
yeah,
By the way, if you haven't discovered them, those early passport applications that are available on Ancestry, they always had a photograph attached, and I find that fascinating that you'll get a, a, a picture of somebody, and it would be a current probably to the time that they were applying, and it might be a photo that nobody else in the family has because it was taken just for that purpose. So. Uh, yeah, that just reminded me. I always think those are such, treasure troves when you look at that application, which has a lot of information on it sometimes about their parentage and where they were born and la la la. But there's also, the photograph that's
yeah,
attached.
yeah. I just was trying to see if I could see anything. Uh, so here's one from 1918. And again, I'm going to see it just kind of goes, "Ugh." It's
Mm.
not very helpful. But again, here's the citation so that people can go. And a lot of this we were simply able to pull from um, um, ancestry.com. Um, so, but again, if people submit photographs to us, we will be able to attach them to the individual. Obviously, it would be nice if we could figure out how to make a picture be clear, whether it's blown up or it remains as a, and I think that's a user error, quite frankly, on my part. I simply am not saving it at the highest dynamic that it
Mm.
can be saved at. I'm just sort of clicking save and, you know, um, so.
Speaking of photos too, when we begin to set up these volunteer opportunities, one of the sort of skills we'll be looking for is somebody who, when people do submit old photographs, if someone has a familiarity with some of the apps that will help clean up old photographs, get rid of scratches and things, or bring them back into sharpness when they're faded, and sometimes even colorize them if you want to, but certainly at least make them as presentable as they can be, so that what we put on there is the best that we can make it. So if keep that in mind, and we'll put that on that website. We'll be looking for one or two individuals who are willing to you know uh, take on that task when somebody submits something and see if they can fix it up a little bit.
And the other thing too, the one thing I like, so just like the Park Society, the Blair Society, there are 27,000 plus entries with the name Blair. So a lot of times, if you're trying to find somebody and it's a John or a John Blair or a Robert Blair, those are two very popular names. You're just going to be scrolling. So one thing you can do is you can either search by, let me just do this. You can search by if you know a birth date, if you happen to know this person ID number, that's actually tied to TNG, so that may not be a helpful field for you uh, to review. But if, let's say, you're familiar with the family, you've been looking it up on TNG for a while, you may note the person ID number, so you could do that. But as you can see, it does, and I think, I don't know, it's not letting me do it. But anyway, I'll just pick on somebody.
Well, and certainly if we have that capability to adapt some of these, like the search results, if putting a field in that has their uh, Park Society FGS number, so which incorporates their lineage key and their generation and their individual number, if we can get that in there, that would be searchable that way. Uh,
So,
just
yeah,
by lineage key, so this John Park
yeah.
is in my lineage, not you know some other. So
So, here's Robert Blair. There's 709 that have some combination of Robert Blair, it could be James Robert, Robert Edward, whatever. I then hit born christened, and I happen to know my ancestor was 1762, so I'm just pulling him up. And here we have all of this information. He is my dead end. Right now, even though he had a very sort of remarkable life, we know where he joined the military, where he was able to all those things. We don't know his parents. And what's interesting is, Blair's like Parks were in the Northeast, and I just it's been a very interesting thing. But anyway, you'll see here, and I've done my this is my family. Um, but you'll see we've got, and then whoopsie, we go back to Phoebe. Nope, I've gone to Hiram again. Doggone it. Oh, let's go there. So this is and there's my maiden name. So there's my great, and then there's my grandfather. And oh, that's my great grandfather. Then my grandmother, another Phoebe, and my dad. And then, of course, me and my brother. So, and the good news here is while I happen to be in, um, yeah, we've, you'll note that this is person. We haven't, um, let's just see. I want to just show you. Yeah, because these are living individuals, and I'm currently not in administrator mode. I do have administrator privileges. So if I were an administrator, it would reveal my father's birth date, his location, and things like that. But because they're living, all of these, the name of the individual, the family they're connected to, you are not seeing their vital information. So it's a protection. And we also, the system is set up that I think by default, and we may have changed it for ourselves just to be extra safe. If the birth date is 120 years earlier, they will then make it visible because we have obviously not, you know, the chances are unlikely that a person has lived for 120 years. But I think the default is 100 years. So that's going to be something that we as the Park Society are going to have to determine, do we want 100 or 120 years? And it will apply for both contemporary people and for people who are born in obviously if they're born in the 16th and 17th and 18th, you know, they're going to show up as having deceased, even though we don't have a death date.
Mm.
So.
Yeah, and not only will that be privatized just to members as well, but also remember the website itself will be available only to members. So
Yes.
it's not like somebody out there is searching and finding out information that unfortunately, I mean, if we made it public, then there'd really be no reason to be a Park Society member. It's sort of like the member only pages and the content that we put behind the paywall, the member only wall. So this will not be available to the general public.
And here, they have a bunch of different sort of like modes that people can click through. We could add whatever and we should probably, like, if we do the DNA and we could do things like that if people just wanted to. And because there's a search function within each of these headings, these categories. And they also are linked to over on the right. So.
So yeah, I think we have talked in some of those other meetings too, is this is going to be a long-term project because Susan talked about how many thousands of Blairs you have.
There are 42,000 records, individuals in this database. And
Yeah.
the nice thing is, unlike some of the software that got used, when you get to a certain capacity, it becomes difficult to maintain on just one computer. This is something that will live, on
Mm,
the in the back of our website.
yeah. But Tad has pointed out, I think there's certainly well over 45,000 entries in our given name index. So uh, it will take a time to get all of that in there. What we're going to focus on first are some of the major lineages that apparently Tad has those in software programs on Family Tree Maker and can upload GEDCOMs that we can then, and that's the easiest way to put content on here, certainly in bulk.
Yeah.
I actually created a TNG site for my own genetic parks group recently. I haven't done much with it, but you know, all I did was so far I've uploaded a couple of GEDCOMs and boom, it's there. And then you can flesh it out and fill it out more. So it will
Yeah.
be it will be a process to populate that, but in the meantime, all of these other features can be added, manually as well. And so,
Yeah, and questions were like, what becomes nice about this database is it really is, I mean, at the end of the day, our mission is to be a clearinghouse, and this really does advance that mission for us.
and yeah, well, this is a discussion for a different time, I suppose. But yes, we are a clearinghouse, and we're certainly never going to abandon that concept. But personally, I like I think we are making a shift to also a research organization as well,
Yes.
with these projects of trying to build databases of uh, park families in the British Isles and other countries, eventually Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, wherever they turn up, because we're broadening our scope. We're certainly welcoming international members. We have discussed and will hopefully be moving in the next few months on actively reaching out to park families of African American descent, which we've meant to do for a long time. But of course, obviously that's a whole other area that many of us may not be that familiar with. But I'm going to be reaching out to some individuals who specialize in that. Um, to make it, the site as inclusive as we can. But in order to have something to offer those people, we need to have resources available on our website for them to pursue their research, and just open this up as broadly as we can. The only exception, as we talked about, would be unfortunately weird. There's no way we can handle the
Korean.
Korean descent park. It's a very common name, and we wouldn't even begin to know how. But other than that, I really would like to see in the 21st century the Park Society be as inclusive as we can make it. So, and what we're talking about, especially with these memory sketches and photos and all of this, is we're it's not just a feature that we're proposing, but it's a cultural shift, I think, for our database. Most genealogy database answers who were these people, but what we're trying to build are answers like what they were like, and adding that color and that flavor to it as well. So that's some of what's ahead. And boy, any of you that want to pitch in and help, we're going to be soon putting some things on the website so that you can get in touch, and we'll start getting down to business, rolling up our sleeves. Well, anybody else got anything today, or the latest ball scores? I guess the Yankees are doing well or something, because Gary Alexander Park said, "I'd love to join you, but it depends on how the game is going today." So I guess we lost him to the Yankees.
Ken, I'm interested in what you started out with today, the idea of the photos, uploading photos, and
Mhm.
I've written about 50 stories so far, and I haven't edited or typed several more, but that's been something I've been doing for the last 15 or 20 years, I guess.
Mhm.
So it my biggest problem is how to uh, get them into some place. I'm on Ancestry.com,
Mhm.
and so when I uh, got into the family FTDNA, of course they would like to have you put information in there too, but it's if there were some easy way to do it, if you could transfer what you have in um, on Ancestry into the other source, that would be ideal. But of course, I think there is no possible way to do that. I don't know.
Probably not an automated thing, but certainly, copying and pasting something and then submitting it. It might be a little clunky, but it's certainly possible to do that. Yeah. Uh,
I
I
have a lot of photos, of course, and it's my mother's line, which is the Parks line. And of course, like most of the rest of our family in Ireland and England, it was Park, but over here, for some reason, it becomes Parks. And one of the stories, of course, is about my great grandmother, Mary Jane Parks. And she came to, I never met her because she died before I was born, but she lived with my mother from the time my mother was born because she was widowed at a fairly young age. So she lived with her daughter and her daughter's family. So my mom did tell me a great deal about her. So it was fairly easy for me to write about her.
yeah, yeah. I've got to find them. Mr. Organized here. I know they're in this office somewhere. But years ago, my dad's older brother, who's only a couple of years older, uh, uh, type wrote several pages of his history, and especially his military history. He was a Marine in the South Pacific during World War II, and all of that stuff could go right in there. My dad did something similar as well, and it would be in their own words, far better than what I could translate from having spoken to them. So if you've got anything like that, floating around in your papers or in your library, uh, that's the kind of thing. Or reaching out to other family members. You never know who's got something like that. Uh, so it doesn't have to be simply our own memories, but if somebody has actually written that down, that's gold. It means so much to hear that. Lou.
I think we ought to share with the members the fact that going with TNG is another benefit is succession planning. We need to make sure that all of our paper records that are now in the Milwaukee office are not lost sometime in the future because all of us have an expiration date. And by transferring our information to TNG, then it's there protected. And that's a reason, another reason that the board is deciding to make this move.
Yeah. And all of this, the new website and the TNG, these things are can be a little challenging to those of us who have white hair, but we're trying to get at least in place and up and running. It may not be complete and the end result, but it will hopefully be there for someone else to pick up and continue. And certainly that's something we keep talking about. And again, at every meeting, every trustee meeting about succession and the future. And yet, I don't know if we've successfully, taken real concrete steps to do that. But if any of you are interested, and I would say if there are any family members of a younger generation who are interested, please, bring them our way because we need that next generation or two to come in because as Lou said, that's a great way of raising it. But yeah, we all have an expiration date, and every day, some of us it's brought home every day that how quickly and how soon that expiration date may be. Uh, but because the society's been around since what 63, if I'm right, yeah, and it did a great deal of work and a great deal of service and amassed a great deal of information over that time. Uh, and it was basically a clearinghouse for many years, and it served a great purpose. In the early 2000s, when DNA testing became available, that sort of took us to a different level because now instead of simply taking in information from members about their direct family lineages and compiling all of that, we then had that ability to genetically identify and sort all of these lineages and people, and that brought another aspect to what we could do. And now things like this TNG website and and so forth, hopefully will take this to another level and really take us into the 21st century and and we'll be able to leave something uh, of value for that younger generation. But at some point, somebody's got to walk in and turn the lights on and keep things working. So if you have any children, grandchildren, nephews, nieces, cousins who evidence any interest at all, swoop down upon them subtly, but encourage it. Let's just put it that way.
And, I'll give you a real example of what happened with the Blair Society when they decided to do TNG and make it. Somebody reached out to us, applied to become a member, and they said in their application that there isn't a Blair in their family tree, but they did a DNA and they found that they have Blairs in the family. And based on their DNA results, this was a woman, we were able to narrow down that window of where that um, Blair ancestor came on the scene. It was between censuses, and but there was only one Blair man in that area at that time. It's it is compelling that this would be, and yet we haven't added this information to TNG because we really want TNG to be as proven as possible. It is 6 generations ago, so there isn't anybody living who would be offended by, the fact that this ancestor might have stepped out. Um, he was actually young. He had not married, so he may not, there may, right now, we just know enough that it's probably him. But we have all this information sort of waiting to go, waiting for further DNA testing to see if we can really make that connection, if there's any, information. But that's the magic of sort of DNA, this understanding, and especially too um, as we have people reach out to us and they want to join, and sometimes they don't know where that connection is. I think the value of TNG is, especially with our DNA information being able to be put into there, it's going to really be able to help people triangulate information. So, but we were very excited because when this request came into the Blairs, we were like, well, I don't know how we're going to figure this out. And yet we really did narrow it down to a very short window. And I have a feeling that in a not too distant future, we will get that finalized and we'll be able to. And then it's going to be a challenge to try and determine where that individual, we'll have to create this will not be a married couple. This will simply be you know, um,
An encounter.
an encounter. Yes. So,
Yeah, well, those are for those of us who do this all the time, those sort of mysteries are what, keep us
yeah,
going.
yeah,
And you sort of remove yourself from this sort of judgmental or whatever aspect, which unfortunately, though, working with the DNA project, we still do need to deal with that because there are people who for whom that kind of information can be very upsetting. They don't always dispassionately look at that as life happens, human nature is human nature, but it sometimes uh, threatens their self-identification if they all of a sudden are not genetically connected to a Parks line, uh, or somebody of a different surname who finds that they are genetically a Parks. It can work both ways, but it just it can threaten your sort of identity of who you are. So at least in my position with the DNA project, that is one of the trickier parts of dealing with people in that way. I have a situation right now going on where I have been putting off dealing with that, and I've got to get in touch with some people that I requested them to do the testing, and then of course it's come back, and so now I feel guilty, because I sort of upset the apple cart. They would have gone on with their lives blissfully unaware. So it's a double-edged sword, but on the other hand, and one of these days, I would love to give a talk, using my own group 008 as an example, and I would title it those perilous NPEs, those non-paternal events, those perilous NPEs, ignore them at your peril, because we have had several in our group that have led to tremendous breakthroughs in the research for our group as a whole. So, they do occur, and sometimes you can, make lemonade out of lemons or something, uh, whatever your analogy you want to use. So that could be a topic for another day. But and hopefully, or maybe you've all encountered those in your own genetic groups or in your own family. But sometimes there's a silver lining. So, well, anybody got anything else? I will maybe try to figure out a way to get some of that content that I did not record sneaked into this at some point. Yeah, it's like, and one of these days I'll just hit record as soon as I log in. When will I ever learn? But thanks for.
It's a shame that they're gonna miss the story of the cats.
Well, like I say, if I can find a way to re-record or stick some of that in somehow, I'll do it.
That was a great story.
Okay, well, thanks. Well, it was good to see everybody. If anybody, nobody has anything else to add, then thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you next month with a brand new show.
Bye.
I say, okay, okay, take care.
thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.